I had a party when they declared me in remission, literally.
Could actually describe the rituximab and the ibrutinib and what that looked like and side effects, anything that popped up for you?
So the rituximab is an infusion. So I had to go in. They have to ramp you up to it. So they started, they checked me into the hospital. They started me on basically an IV slow drip of Rituxan. I had what's a pretty classic but pretty aggressive reaction to it at first. So it can trigger something called the rigors in you, which is basically your whole body. It's like you have a really bad fever, and the chills that you get with a really bad fever, like you're just balled up and shaking. They caught that right away, buried me in warm blankets and gave me something to counteract that. My husband tells me it was only like a minute or so that I was going through the rigors. It felt like half an hour to me. So then they slowed the drip down. And that first one to get the whole dose in took actually 2 days for me, but that's pretty unusual. They had to slow it down quite a bit. Beyond that, they then would speed it up. Eventually it got to the point where the infusion would be like 4 hours. So I would just go in once, at first it was every 2 weeks, and then it was once a month for the Rituxan infusion. For that first month, I was only on the Rituxan. And then they added the ibrutinib, and the ibrutinib was a pill, and it was just a pill that I took every day. So one pill once a day. I could go about my life other than having to go for this infusion once a month that, like I said, did only take 4 hours most of the time. I was able to work through the whole thing. My company I had enough leave time that I could take days off to go get the infusion. And my company was really good about it. So every month when I would go for my infusion, they would do blood work. At first, they just did the blood work to see how I was responding. So they would look at my white blood count. They would look at a few other things to see how I was responding to the test. 3 months in, they did another bone marrow biopsy to check if my bone marrow was responding to these biologic drugs. And I was still, my white blood count was significantly down. My spleen was down back to normal size, but my bone marrow was still showing some mantle cell lymphoma. So I kept going on the biologic. And then at 6 months, they tested again, and I had a complete response. My white blood count was, it was below normal now. And my bone marrow was completely clean, and nothing showed up on the scan. So my spleen, no lymph nodes, no anything. So I had a complete response. They declared me in remission, but now it was time for phase 2 of the trial, which was the chemotherapy. So because I had reached complete remission, I only needed 4 months or 2 full rounds of the chemotherapy. It could have been that or 8 or 16, depending on what your response had been to the first part. So I got lucky. I only needed the short version.
Yay.
Yeah.
That's amazing. It's so great. I mean, just to see, I'm sure you felt, how did you feel hearing the complete response?
Well, I was ecstatic. I had a party when they declared me in remission, literally. But at the same, like I just declared this day, the celebration day. And then the next day I worried about the chemotherapy. And I knew what I was doing when I signed up for the trial, but I had maybe underestimated the significance of knowing that I didn't have cancer in my body, but I was still going to go through chemotherapy. So
a lot to take on, right? Yeah. Normally it's like, you did it. Congratulations.
Right.
We're going to shelve treatment and we're going to, see what happens. So Stephanie, you're just talking about how you underestimated the impact of understanding, well, I have no more cancer, where I'm in remission, but nope, you're going to have to like undergo intense chemo still. So if you could describe that regimen, I know it was 4 months, it's 2 full rounds of it because it's AB. Mm-hmm. How was that?
I am glad I only had 4 rounds. It was tough. It got progressively worse. So the first month with the A cycle, I handled pretty well. I had sort of my contingency plan in place because I wasn't sure when I got out of the hospital if I was going to feel like going to work or if I was not. I was able to work. I went back to work the very next day and mostly was fine. The B round I suffered more from in general. It left me feeling pretty sick. Most people, it's the other way around, but I got nailed with the B round.
You took the time off. And if you could also paint the picture of, so you went into the hospital, how many days, was it the same for A and B, and how long were those infusions?
Yeah. So for A round, I would go in, it was 5 days pretty steadily. And it's 5 days. Like they sequence the drugs. They start you on one and then they add in the next, but you're hooked to an IV the whole 5 days.
So it's continuous infusion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But you can move around, and I got really good at. I knew the guards at the hospital, and I'd go down to the coffee shop to get a coffee and see what was going on, and I could walk. My husband made me walk. He was like, "You're not going to lay in this bed and just waste away. You're going to get up and walk." So we mapped out a route with the crosswalks and things that was 2 miles. So I walked at least 2 miles every day with my pole, who I named Fred. He was my dance partner. And I was okay. The B round, like I said, I got sicker with that one. So that's when I learned about anti-nausea drugs and all the things that they'll give you to help with side effects. But I weathered through that pretty well too. I kind of felt like I had the flu with the B round, right? But I still would get up and walk and do everything I could. And then the second A round was a little bit worse. And then the second B round, and the B round was a little less predictable. It was actually 4 days of an infusion, but you had to clear one of the drugs out of your kidneys before they would let you go home because it can damage your kidneys. And that can take anywhere from 24 to 72 hours. So it could be 5 days, it could be 6 days, it could be 7 days. I was pretty lucky. It cleared out of my system pretty well. The first time I was in, it was 5 days and they let me go home. I had trouble clearing it the second time. So I think it was 7 days before I could go home the second time. But
you mean 7 days of the hospital stay altogether, right? So then, of course, you said Zofran was your best friend,
Zofran was my best friend. Yes.
And
I discovered coconut oil for mouth sores.
Really? I wish I had known that.
Yeah, they'll tell you baking soda, which kind of works, but if you swish coconut oil around your mouth, it takes them right away. It's amazing.
I wish I had known that. I had terrible mouth sores, like 20 of them.
At that point, they give you drugs. They give you the drugs, and then they give you the drugs to counter the side effects of the drugs, and then they give you the drugs to help you sleep, and they give you the drugs to... But you just embrace it because you you need to manage what's going on in your body for sure.
Thank you, Stephanie. I as we wrap this, and thank you for bearing with me. We went over, but this was really, really impactful. So to get to the sort of conclusion of at least the trial, you started in January of 2017, you ended it in October 2017. What was sort of the follow-up like after? It's a clinical trial, there's going to be follow-up.
Yeah.
What was that like, and how has it been for you since?
Yeah. So once I completed the chemotherapy, I had to go back a month later. So I went back in November, just so they could, check how I was recovering from the chemotherapy, how everything was going. They did another set of blood tests to make sure I was still in remission and had, wasn't boomeranging or whatever it's called when you stop treatment and then it comes back. And then after that, it was every 3 months I would go back for blood tests and a PET CT scan. I haven't had to do another bone marrow biopsy since the one was clear, and I'm very grateful for that. So then I did every 3 months for a couple of years, and then they pushed it to every 6 months. And then this fall, I will be 5 years out. So I haven't been since last August. I'll go back this August. And then I will officially have completed the trial. I will still go back for tests to follow up for another 5 years. But the trial itself will be completed and my data will count. So that was a hard year. I don't want to in any way say that wasn't a hard year, but I learned so much about myself. I'm very grateful for that year. And it sounds a little weird to say that, but I learned about myself. I learned about other people. People showed up in ways I never would have expected to help and support and help me get through that. Help my husband help me get through that. And I'm very grateful to be on this side of it. But I'm 5 years out and I haven't had any signs of any kind of recurrence. So I feel like I made a really good decision about joining that trial.
What a wonderful experience to share. And how do you deal with, I think one question people ask is, every time you have another checkup, whether it's labs or a scan, whatever it may be, scanxiety, right? So there's the waiting for results part, but there's also waiting leading up to just even having that done. How have you managed through that?
Yeah. So scanxiety is very real. I think knowing that it's real and acknowledging that helps, but it's still real. I'm cranky is the best way to put it for a couple of days before a scan. And I don't necessarily always recognize it, but I'm just definitely on edge because you've already gotten that bad news once, right? So like in the back of your head is, what if it happens again? The way I cope with that is just, well, you made it through once. So if you have to do it again, you will get through it again. Like you can do this, it's okay, but it doesn't make it less hard to cope with. But the days after, counterbalance it because you're clean, right? Like there's no more sign of cancer in you, and so you can relax as much as you were anxious for the days before. So it all balances out.
Balance. It's like so elusive for so many of us, I think. That's it's a great piece of guidance, I think. That's it for my questions in terms of your experience. I think overall, I'd love to, any last message you have for people who are watching and reading this?
I hope what you heard me say is just don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to advocate for yourself. This is your life. You know what you want to do. You know what you need to do. You know how you make decisions. You make sure you get what you need to do that. That's what I'd leave you with.